flip noise users. Okay, so this session we're going to look at DJing with Ableton, in particularly warping your music. Right, so we're going to dive straight in. First thing I'm going to do is, I've got an audio track there, I'm going to create another audio track. These are going to be like our 2 decks. To make sure these decks work, I want to make sure that if I go to preferences, which on a Mac is in live preferences, if you've got a PC you want to go options and at the bottom. So we're going to go to preferences, and then we're going to go down the tab to audio, and then in audio output, which is the one we're looking for, you want to select which audio output device you want to use. Okay, so we've got 2 decks there. We've got deck 1 and deck 2, so we can name those. You can either right click and rename it, and if you leave the hashtag there, it will keep it numbered as well, so I can actually call that just deck, and when I come off that, you've got 1 deck, so the little hash will number it. And one more thing, Command R is a shortcut to rename it, and then I'm going to leave the hash in and call that deck as well, and it will leave the number. So whichever way round I do these, it will always have the right deck in the right order. Right, okay, so a couple of things I don't need today. So I'm going to minimize the screen. I'm going to get rid of my sends and returns. And I'm also going to get rid of my ins and outs. Okay. And I usually, if yours looks a bit different, I usually stretch my mixers out a little bit when I'm using it to play tracks. So we've got deck 1, deck 2, and this is the slots where we can put our records. Next thing you want to do is set up using add folder. So we're going over to this browser unit here, and if it's not up, you just need to click on that. Go to add folder. Okay, and if you add folder, you can look for whichever folder you keep all your music in. My folder is my tunes there, and I'm going to go to some tunes I've been sent in December. And let's have a look for a track that we can demo it with. So we can look at this Plump DJ track. Notice some tracks, if I really like them, I'll download them as a WAV as well as an MP3. And I'm going to go for the extended mix, and let's do 1 WAV and 1 MP3. You highlight it. Well, actually, you can click on it, and providing you've got the blue headphone lit there, it will audition it. So I'm going to drag it into deck 1, okay, and I could play that, and you've got your volume control there. But look at the metronome. It's all out of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to double click it, and you'll notice that this warp isn't on. Now, the reason why it didn't warp itself is because in the preferences, and where it says warp, if you look at auto warp long samples, I've got off. Okay, if you want it to auto warp for you, you can switch that on and maybe put that to complex. But for me, I like to do it manually. I like to switch that on. I like to look for the downbeat. So the downbeat is, let's have a listen. So the downbeat is basically the 1 in the 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to look for that. That little transient marker tells me that's the start of the transient in the 1. If your track starts with a string, just miss the string off and start with the first beat, and then you can pull the start back. So what do I mean by that? Well, once you've highlighted the first transient, it turns yellow. You can then right click it, and you can set that to the first beat, first measure, the first beat, first bar, 1, 1, 1. You can move the loop if you want. It's not essential because we haven't got the loop on at the moment. So even now, with the metronome on, because that's the aim, to try and put it in time with the metronome. Doesn't matter what tempo this is, because we're going to warp it to the tempo so it should change with that tempo. I'll demonstrate that once I've warped it. So what we're going to do now is listen. All we've done, found the first transient on the first downbeat and then turned it yellow, right clicked it and set it to 1-1. Let's listen to that now. So it starts off right and then it drifts out, and that's because we haven't warped the rest of it. We've only just put the start in. So what we need to do is right click that, and a good one with most kind of EDM sort of stuff, dance music, anything made on a computer, is warp from here straight. It's a little bit more tricky if it's a live band, but still possible in a few minutes. So warp from here straight. Did you see that move? I'll just undo that and show you it again. Right click, warp from here straight, and it moves into here. And let's just have a quick listen. Okay, and if we went all the way to the end, still in time. So I'm going to choose a number. One of these will be a downbeat. 161 hasn't got no drums on, so I'm not going to choose that. 153, let's listen to that. Yeah, 153 hasn't really got a downbeat on, it's got a clap. So I'm going to go for 145, and I'm going to zoom in on it by hovering my magnifying glass above the numbers, okay, clicking on it and dragging it down towards myself. And you can see that Ableton always slightly goes out a little bit like that. If you want to be spot on, you want one at the beginning and one at the end, like that. Okay, let's listen to that. Check it out in a few places. Okay, so that's warped. That's how easy it is. The advantage of that is you can do your sets at any speed. So, for example, I'm going to change the tempo now. Okay, you can hear it kind of, some audio artifacts creeping in there. And if we look down here under the warp, you'll see that it's set to beats. Okay, so in other words, Ableton's algorithm is set to optimize the transient beats, basically. And we want it to, well, if you want it like a vinyl deck, you could do repitch. Let's demonstrate that. Okay, so that's just like a vinyl deck, but not a vinyl deck could be +8 and -8. This will go to 1,000 BPM. Not that you want that, but it might be an effect. Right, so I'm going to set that to about 123, and well, let's go to 126. And let's set, if you don't want the pitch to change like a deck, maybe you want it like a CDJ 2000 with a fixed pitch, you could put it to Complex Pro, and it will still change the tempo, but the pitch will stay the same. Now, if you're doing, if you're mixing in key, then you probably don't want to put it to pitch. I like putting it to pitch sometimes because it does sometimes add energy to the record you need. It's more like playing on vinyl decks, but sometimes it can put some audio artifacts in that aren't very pleasant. Right, so let's do another deck. I'm going to put that to Complex Pro, and then I'm going to choose another record. Don't know what I've got here. I think, well, let's just try one of these. So we should be able to audition it. So I'm going to drop that in. Okay. And I'm going to double click it. I'm going to switch warp on. Okay. And then I'm going to look for the downbeat. And that looks like the downbeat there. I'll just double check. And I'm going to switch my Plump DJ track off and switch this one on. Okay, so that's my downbeat. I'm going to come off there, right click, set from here. I can see that if I want. And remember now, we're almost there. but we want to right click and warp from here straight, and then minimize it, go to the end, one of these big numbers. That one should have a downbeat on it, and you can see it's slightly out. Just pull it into time. And then one thing I didn't mention before, you want to save that by clicking on that button, and then you won't have to warp again. It will save it with a little file within the folder. So let's have a quick listen to that, and while I'm at it, I'll just put that on Complex Pro. Okay, so we've got this record, and then by putting the next record in. Okay, so I'm doing the mix now. And I'm just slowly bringing the deck down, or the deck 2 down, and then something like that, we're in the mix. That's the basics. I'm going to keep this one short. I'm going to do a part 2 where I can put EQ on each of the decks and maybe set up a controller. But for now, that's it. Thank you very much.